Today I'm sitting down with one of the greatest guitar players on the earth. And this guitar player is actually dissatisfied with his skills currently. We'll get into that, as well as all of his accolades. The guitar player in question is named Josh Smith. You've probably heard of him, and if you haven't, you're welcome. Josh recently produced Eric Gale's album Crown, which is Grammy nominated. He plays with Joe Bonamassa on tour. I'm gonna go see them next week. But above all else, he is an absolute guitar player. He's a guitar player's guitar player, but he's also the listener's guitar player. Few people can be in the middle of that Venn diagram. Josh is one of those guys. He's also one of the coolest, most open guys that I've met, and I really had an enjoyable time picking his brain about all things guitar and music, along with his journey on how to make it in the music industry. There are a lot of valuable nuggets of information for you to learn, as well as some glorious licks to hear. Without further ado, Josh Smith. Fast friends, man, so I hate to do this and ruin everything, but
Oh God. Oh, you did say you lived in Boston and we're there for a long time.
Patriots, Celtics, Red Sox, Bruins is my hierarchy. You seem like a Yankees guy through and through, because
the Yankees are my biggest obsession in life.
Are you from New York? Do you just spend a lot of time there? What's your
I was born in Connecticut, and my whole side of the father's side of the family is Connecticut and New Jersey, and they're all lifelong Yankee fans, lifers. And so while we moved to Florida when I was one, there was the Marlins didn't exist yet where I grew up in Fort Lauderdale, and there was no option for me to be a fan of any team but the Yankees. That's my dad's favorite team, lifetime. You know, he went to go see Mickey Mantle. You know what I mean? He's a Yankee guy. And baseball I love all sports, but baseball was always my favorite. I played. It was my only dream was to either be a baseball player or a guitar player, and I watch every game. Like, I'm a massive Yankee fan.
Well, you guys just beat us down in that last series.
We did, finally, because we've been playing like junk for the last 6 weeks.
Judge is there like a guitar tone equivalent to Aaron Judge?
Man, I hope people realize what they're seeing with Aaron Judge right now. I kind of feel like it's getting, not overlooked, but, you know, you've got Shohei, who's this freak and is doing insane things. But honestly, I've been watching baseball since I was 2 years old. Actually, we're off in August in New York City on a day the Yankees are home playing. Sure.
Yeah. Beautiful.
And luckily, I have some Yankee friends, so I have sometimes a hookup on tickets.
Oh, they're everywhere crawling around.
Well, Bernie Williams is a friend who was my hero, and he's a guitar player, yes. So we're guitar player friends.
Oh, Bernie Williams plays guitar?
Oh, yeah, really well.
Really?
Yeah. In fact, he's won Grammys. Latin Grammys for his guitar playing.
I made this video about the best celebrity guitar player in the world, and I said it was Jeff Daniels.
Oh, yeah. Dude, Jeff is such a nice guy, too.
He seems like an amazing guy.
He narrated a project for Joe, like a documentary. And so him and Bonamassa, they're buddies. And he was shooting something in Pittsburgh last year, one of the new show that he's on now. And so he came to a show in Pittsburgh and hung out all day and talked guitar, and what a great dude.
I want to ask you, there's so many places to start with you, but I want to start just currently what you're up to. I think I read a post on your Instagram, 10-day itinerary, where you started at a jazz festival, the Heritage Jazz Festival in New Orleans, and then flew to Japan and closed on a house, and then flew back the United States to play in Seattle, was it? Do I have that right?
Yeah.
To play with Bonamassa and open for the Rolling Stones?
Yeah, that was
10 days you did
that? Was a heck of a week. Yeah,
Is that a normal week? I assume you don't buy houses in Japan every day, so...
No, that's a new thing.
What was like the highlight of that week? Is there...
buying the house in Japan. Although opening for the Stones was amazing.
Yeah.
But my wife and I going to Japan and signing the papers to get
Did you have to sign in Japanese...
No, but you have to get a stamp, like your legal signature and your last name. Oh. So Japan is just some place I've always loved over the years, going there on tour. You know, when you travel as much as I do, I'm sure everybody feels this way, but every now and then you just go somewhere and you go, this place is me.
Yeah,
like
this is it.
I should be here some, you know.
And LA is where you're normally based.
Yeah, I've been living in LA since 2002, so 22 years.
Would you define yourself as a session player or a touring musician?
I feel like I've had three kind of careers.
Okay.
And I'm 44, you know, but I had my childhood career, which was I'm play blues and that's what I do and that's what I love and I'll never do anything but. I played blues, I toured the country in a van, made no money, made records just for cheap and sold them out of the back of the van at gigs, and I was living a life. Like everything was amazing. And then, you know, that got really tiring and I wasn't making any money and I felt like I wasn't making enough headway for what I wanted to achieve. And also I wanted to kind of grow up quicker. I met my wife to be at that time, and we wanted to start being, I needed to be an adult, you know, and grow up. So that was when I decided, well, maybe I can try something else. And that was the only thing I could come up with, was being a session guitar player or touring sideman, you know, but more a guitar player for hire, basically.
Yeah.
And so I thought, well, LA is the place for that. I'm going to go to LA. And I had an uncle who lives out there. So we went to LA. Literally, I got married June 15th of 2002. July 1st, loaded up a U-Haul and drove all the way from Miami, Florida to Los Angeles myself, you know. Didn't know what I was going to do. Just blind faith, you know, and started going out every night, shaking hands and kissing babies.
Is that right? So that's how you do it. I think that's honestly still how you do it, but I could be wrong. I really think the personal connection and the networking.
And I really didn't know what I was going to achieve. And also I didn't have, while I had a ton of experience and hours being me and playing guitar, like improvising and playing blues and just doing that thing. So I was a professional who knew how to be on stage and to solo. I'd never done any sessions. Yeah, I'd been in the studio, but only to make my own music, you know what I mean?
Right.
And I'd never really played anybody else's music. I'd played blues and covers and stuff, but not like, you know, learning people's parts off records and going to do Michael Jackson cover gig or thing. You know what I mean? Just a working gig. I really was just I thought I might be a good enough guitar player to figure it out, like to just go out there and start working. Quickly fell into the lowest tier of stuff, which was singer-songwriter. You know, hey, will you come play with me at this place or that for $75? Just back me up, play acoustic while I play the songs I wrote. And then that turns into, will you come record that song with me at my friend's studio?
Yeah.
And then at that studio, the producer she hired may be a real producer, you know what I mean? And he said, man, you play great. I've got a session next week for this person. Will you come there? And then that's at a real studio. And you meet somebody else there who may be the MD on this pop gig. And that's kind of how it happened for me. And they said, dude, why don't you come audition? We're getting ready to put a band together for a tour for this guy who just got signed on Virgin. And it's kind of a throwback soul thing. You'd be great for it. And that was my first gig. And that was how it worked. It was like this connection to that connection to that connection. And that was my first like sideman tour. And it lasted like a year of, you know, back then there used to be bands would get signed to major labels, and even if no one would ever hear of them, they were spending a lot of money on these freaking bands. Yeah. So they'd be out there going around doing like radio station tours where they were shaking hands of program directors and playing acoustic in the you know the broadcast room or in the boardroom for these people, trying to get them to play their records. And the label was paying for all of this, like bankrolling the artist and having him bring musicians and all this. So there was way more gigs like that, you know, so I started doing lots of random stuff like that. And
that's the first time a pick has been found after it was dropped.
I thought it went in my pedal board, yeah. But that was, sessions for me were a massive learning curve because like I said, I'd never done any sessions other than mine. So I didn't know how to get like necessarily a tone that maybe initially I thought sucked, but it was the tone someone else wanted me to get. You know what I mean? So
what would be an example of that? Like,
a good example of that would be like I hated AC30s as a kid, and before I moved to LA. Hated them. I'd plug into them and go, this is so fucking bright and I can't get a sound out of this that I like, and why do people use this? And then someone, you know, at a session one day had a bunch of house amps. And they said, man, I really need the jangly, like Tom Petty thing. I'm going to pull out my AC30 for you. I said, you sure? You know, and yeah. So I plugged straight into this guy's AC30, and he set the knobs. He said, just do this. You know what I mean? I was like, whoa, I get it.
Now
I get it now.
Understand the sound.
I get it. And, you know, like, now I use an AC30 as part of my rig always. Like, but I would have never even considered it. And so I learned a lot, not just technique-wise and music-wise, from getting into all those situations that I had never done before, but also just like gear-wise. I started trying everything I never would have tried because I realized, well, I need to have pedals that don't just get my sound. I need to have, if someone tells me he needs the edge, then I need a delay that gives me a dotted eighth and a quarter note at the same time. I'd never done that, or whatever. I need I need a Les Paul. I'd never even owned a Les Paul at that point, you know what I mean? Or I need something with Gretsch pickups, that's Gretschy or whatever. So that was part of my evolution too, was all of those things.
Well, that sort of explains your guitar playing in a sense, because you're a really versatile guitar player with a lot of influence. I've seen you play jazz, but I've also seen you play really hard, aggressive rock and shredding almost. You know, blues, of course, is right in your wheelhouse.
Yeah.
So the versatility and the open-mindedness, I think, is really valuable to any guitar player and musician. And sometimes we can like close off like tunnel vision. When is it okay to tunnel vision and be like, no, I know what I got to do. I gotta have to listen to the voice in my head and do this thing. And when are you supposed to be open? Is there an answer to that?
Yeah. You're always supposed to be open, no matter what. Because the most important thing in every situation is, whether it's your music or somebody else's or whatever, is serving the muse or whatever. Being honest is what I call it. Like really playing what you believe, what you feel, what you're hearing in your head, all those types of things. But, you know, you have to be cognizant of what people are asking you to do and read the room. Like, who hired you? Why are you there? And so that shifted for me over the years too. From like when I first got to LA and started doing sessions, I was a nameless guitar player in the back, just expected to play the parts perfectly. You know what I mean? Read the chart, play chords, come up with something cool, but not necessarily maybe add a ton of personality. Certainly not my personality. I didn't even know what that was yet, you know, other than blues. But now it's kind of come full circle. A lot of times, because I don't do as many just of those type of nameless sessions anymore, when people hire me to play guitar on something now, they're calling because they want actual me, not just guitar player guy. They want me to come in and be me, which is weird, because now it's like that's completely opposite. I had untrained that from myself, and now that's what's expected most of the time when I get hired for a session.
Joining with Joe and the different assets that you bring to that band, meaning like, I'm a kick-ass guitar player, but also these cues are all off with the lights, or let's have a little moment here in this half bridge, and really, you know, putting a microscope over music. You're like a glue guy in a locker room, you know what I mean? Like
I try to
kind of role.
I try to be in, same thing when you're producing a record. You're trying to like get the person's vision out the way that they see it, but also maybe make it even better than they knew that it could possibly be. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But still serving what they want, not forcing them to do things they don't like or whatever. And so I mean, I'm kind of just a go-getter anyways, so when I get thrown into a situation, if there's things that I see that I can make better without being a dick, like do it in a politically correct way and say, hey, this is, you know, I think this is something that we could improve.
Probably depends on who you're working with.
It 100% depends. 100%. You again, reading the room, you got to know when it's okay to say, hey man, I think this thing that we're doing right here, this could be better. And that's not necessarily always a musical thing, you know what I mean? It could be whatever. It could be like what song you use to walk out on stage while the lights are down. It could be what we're wearing on stage. It could be our professionalism or the way we treat sound check or whatever. You know what I mean? There's so many ways to improve micro dynamics of everything we're doing, and that's important to me. That's been kind of what's driven me since the beginning. I want to be better tomorrow than today at whatever it is. So if I'm producing records a lot right now, which I am, I want to be better in that tomorrow. I want to arrange songs better, get better drum sounds, figure out how to do this better than I did yesterday. And that's my biggest, like, that pushes me.
That's a good segue into what we were talking about right before I turned on the cameras, which is that for the first time in your life, you're feeling a certain way. Why don't you just go on that frame of mind?
Yeah, so I'm 44 years old. been playing guitar since I was 6 years old. I've been playing professionally since I was 12. And I mean like that for real. Like I was playing gigs when I was 12 every weekend. You know, making money and playing and being most of the time the guy that was the main soloist in the band. So I was learning how to do my job really early. So I had all these a million hours put in practice. And I built that up into this, I put a lot of like expectation on myself to always be improving and to always not be perfect, but to be like just, man, you know, I wanted it to feel everything like feel intentional and purposeful and like not effortless, but kind of, you know, like yeah. I crave that feeling.
In the
like,
zone.
You're in the zone. Like, so you hear something and, you know, this little section in the music is going by that's 2 beats and you want to go, it comes out perfectly in that 2 beats. You know what I mean? I crave that, like the ability to always be like, oh man, I hear it, I want to play it. And that comes from my upbringing and, like I said, how serious I kind of take all this stuff, but also like my heroes. I remember like the first time I heard Danny Gatton, it felt like he would think of something and play it, think of something and play it. Yep. And I wanted that. And yeah, for the first time ever, I'm not doing that right now, and I'm not happy about it.
And that's due to what?
It's due to no practice in it. You know what I mean? Letting that muscle atrophy a little bit, like, and that's because since COVID, I've done nothing but produce records and tour with Joe, which is a blast. And the whole band is my best friends. The music is amazing. The audience is my audience. Like, the people out there are predisposed to like what I do. So I make new fans every night. I mean, it's literally my target demographic.
Yeah.
But I only solo once or twice a night. You know, and it's a set length, so there's not a ton of improvisation going on.
You can't like elbow Joe and be like, come on.
Well, it's his gig. You know, he's incredibly gracious. You know what I mean? He's incredibly gracious. And but it's, people are there to see him play. Right. They're paying a lot of money to come to the show, and they're sold out. And also, I approach it like the same way I approach everything. It's my job. I know my job when I'm on that stage. I'm fulfilling that job to back him up. To, you know, I kind of, you know, I'm the musical director of the band basically, so my ears are really open and my eyes are open on stage. I'm kind of making sure everything is going the way.
Your skills are being distributed in other ways.
In other ways.
To the band.
Yeah, I sit around and solo at home or on the bus or in the hotel room, but that's not the same thing as improvising like for real with the band and having that muscle be as, like I said, as sharp as it could be.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is the first time I've ever felt like, oh, God.
How long have you been feeling this way, if you had to put a number on it?
For the last 6 months.
Last 6 months?
Yeah.
What are you going to do about it?
It's a good question.
I don't really put you on the spot.
I don't really know, to be honest, what the
I'm asking because we all have moments of uncertainty, even if everything's going perfectly well. Like we were just talking, yeah. I couldn't be happier.
I couldn't be happier with
everything.
Life, you know?
Like
that's why I don't want it to come off like I'm complaining.
No, of course
not. But I identify so. It's so silly to say, but so much of like my personality and my core of who I am is tied to the way that I play this fucking thing.
Yeah.
Like it's all of me, you know, it's my whole life. It has been since 6 years old. And so when it doesn't play the way that I'm used to it or the way that I hear it in my head, it could bum me out a little bit, you know what I mean? Right. So I got to figure out a way to keep doing what I'm doing, but get back to doing more of my own stuff so that I get that sharpness back.
I got the solution. Live stream shed sessions. That way you got your YouTube thing. You don't have to make any videos. Just press record and it's on. It creates a catalog. You're an incredible player. People will watch you practice for as many hours as you want to put in.
I'll come home from tour and I'll have a gig booked at the Baked Potato in LA, which is my home base, you know.
Right.
And it'll be, you know, that's the first time I've played my gig in 2 or 3 months, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And get in there, and inevitably I know I'm going to leave the night going, man, I was kind of just not my favorite.
Sure.
I played all right. Nobody in the audience, no, let's at least preface, no one else knows this but me.
Well, I'm laughing because I would be like, most lay people are like, that was incredible. But yes, this pressure you have to put on yourself.
But we, you know, when we go see our heroes, Robin Ford, Eric Johnson, you know, Larry Carlton, John Scofield, I'm sure there's nights that they go home and go, man, I was fucking sucking tonight. You know what I mean? Everybody does. Mm-hmm. And so, but there was just recently I did one for the first time in a while. And I was trying to make a mental note. Like the first set, I felt like, man, nothing is coming out fluidly like the way that I want it to. Mm-hmm. I hear what I want to play, but again, it's just kind of a little bit off, just off kilter. Second set, all of a sudden, for the first half of the second set, it was like, there I fucking am. There I am. Like, oh man, that's me. Like, I feel all is right in the world. And then it went away again towards the end of the second because I got tired because I hadn't sold it that much.
Yeah,
you know, that was two 90 minutes. That was 3 hours of soloing. You know what I mean? But it was like, okay, that's what it is. I just need to do this more again. Because it's there. It's still there. I'm not going to lose it.
The funny thing is, sometimes people will tackle this problem with anything other than practice, which is new pedal, check out a guitar. I don't know, my amp's a little weird. Maybe I need to try this, that, and the other.
I'm all for new pedals and amps and guitar. Anything that makes you excited to pick up the guitar is cool. Like, that's great. But yeah, I mean, there's no substitute for time spent on playing the instrument.
Well, I haven't seen you fall off yet, so if anything really happens, I'll let you know. But
okay,
you should be fine.
I appreciate that.
I want to talk a little bit about your gear too, because this is a signature guitar that you have here. Mm-hmm. I didn't mean to match you with the black and white.
That's a good look.
Serendipitous.
Yeah.
I literally just have been playing this guitar and picked it up.
That's a cool guitar because it reminds me of the Strat Stevie had with the lipstick pickups, the Charlie one.
This is a Dano right up his alley. What goes into your mind first when you're like, I gotta sound good? Is it the guitar? Is it the amp? Is it the pedals? Is it the sound on the stage?
Oh, yeah.
What are your factors that you're considering?
They are all very important. I consider them all. I wouldn't say equally, but they're all very considered. Everything is deliberate when it comes to the way that I get my tone and think about tone. The amp is paramount. I did all my interviews during COVID with all those people. That was the last question I asked everybody, or one of them was, if you had to choose on the gig a shitty guitar or a shitty amp, which would you choose? You could have a great guitar and a shitty amp, or a great amp and a shitty guitar. It was split. Everybody had a different answer, but for me, it's the amp every time. Mm-hmm. Like, I'll play some awful guitar with terrible strings, and strings are super dependent for me because I use super heavy strings. So for me to play a guitar with like light strings or some crappy thing is tough. I'd still rather have that with a good amp with the right amount of headroom, and not like this plinky tone that just doesn't give you anything back. Like, I'll always take the amp. So the amp is first, always. Honestly, the biggest part of my tone is more of an overriding philosophy on dynamics and kind of eliminating compression. Mm-hmm. I tend to try to think of compression as an effect to be used that way. Like, it's okay to use a compressor pedal. It's okay to want compression on stuff. But when you're compressing everything and you're an improviser, like what I try to be, you're flatlining dynamics, you know what I mean? So there's a time and a place for compression. For me, it's mostly in the studio, not in a live setting. Because in a live setting, it limits what I'm able to do with my hands, which is, if I just lighten my pick just this much, I want them to hear that difference, which is, you're talking this to this, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I want people to hear that. So everything I use is kind of filtered through that lens. It starts with the heavy strings and the pickups that I like, the cables even that I like, the main pedals that I like. It's all about, like, man, if I change my volume knob one number, I want to hear that. If I roll the tone, I want to hear that. If I change the way I pick, I want to hear that. And that's super important to me.
What's up with, you call it the Flat V?
Yeah.
What is
Flat 5.
Yeah, I know that. I was thinking, as you're a guitar player of many different talents, what goes into your spreadsheet for it has to have these 5 things.
I mean, obviously it's a Telecaster based design.
Which is your go-to kind of model guitar.
Yeah, which is funny because as a kid that was not what I was into.
No.
I was a Strat guy 100%.
Strats.
Because of Stevie and Jimi Hendrix, you know what I mean? Those were my heroes. Yeah. That's what I grew up on, you know what I mean? I was Strat, Tube Screamer, Super Reverb, Stevie Ray Vaughan, Fuzzface, Jimi Hendrix. That's what I loved. And neck pickup, glassy, Strat, in between, all that stuff. And I would try Tellys over the years and didn't quite get it. And this was when I was, like I said, I was still just in that blues only Stevie Ray Vaughan phase. That we all grow out of that initial kid phase that whatever we become obsessed with, you know?
Yep.
And then one day I picked up a Telly that happened to be finally like maybe the first like real good one I'd ever played. And I plugged into a Princeton reverb. And I remember just going through the 3 pickup combinations, just neck, both, or bridge. And all of a sudden like realizing I could play anything with these sounds.
And that's like the Telly thing that, you know, some people say that with other guitars, but I feel like out of all of the models, you can do anything with a Telly. That's the
I will
consensus.
argue that till the day I die. There is no guitar that is more versatile. It's the most simple guitar that there is, electric guitar, other than I guess like a single pickup Junior, you know, but I mean, dude, there's no contours. It's hard. There's 3 saddles for 6 strings. There's a ton of compromises in the design, but for some reason that's what makes it so magic. So like, yeah, if I got to go to a jazz gig, you know, or jazzy gig or whatever, and play on neck pickup all night long, well, tons of guys have. Look at Bill Frisell and Julian Lage and Ed Bickert, and you know, people have done that for years on Tellys. It excels in that range. Okay, if I need a soul and R&B gig, well, what does Steve Cropper play? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What did Cornell Dupree play? Like that, dude, it excels. You put it in the middle position, that's a sound only Tellys get. That's the sound of Stax guitar, you know what I mean? And Motown guitar. Mm-hmm. And then you put it on that bridge pickup, it's the sound of freaking country and R&B, but also the sound of Tom Petty and the Beatles. And it's the only guitar where if you told me, hey Josh, I need to hire you for this session, and you didn't tell me what kind of music it was, it's the only guitar I would bring, not knowing what I was going to do. I can't say that about any other guitar.
I think you're right about that. I obviously play a lot of different style of guitars, but I tend to gravitate towards a Telecaster with a humbucker in it. Mm-hmm. Pickups will matter a little bit, but I also think the plank of wood style guitar that a Telly is, there's a sort of underlying comfort where if you're a guitar player of your faculties, you'll be able to execute anything that you want to.
100%.
And yeah, Tellys rule.
They're so great.
It has to be T-shaped.
Has to be T-shaped. And then they had a long-term plan for, you know, maybe making multiple ones over the years if it was successful, which it's been relatively successful. They're happy, so I'm happy.
Great.
So there's a new one. We have another one coming out later this year with a humbucker in the neck.
Oh, cool.
And with a rosewood board. So basically this is like the main guitar that I use. It's 50 style. It's ash body, maple neck, regular pickup configuration, and then the next one will be more 60s configuration, alder body, rosewood board, humbucker in the neck, like a modded Telecaster from the 60s. You know, the only other difference between this and like a real 50s Telecaster are a few modern upgrades that suit me better. Things like the frets. These are based on a StewMac 154 fret, which are a little taller and a little wider. They're not jumbo, but they're taller than vintage frets, you know. The saddles, these are titanium. I've used titanium saddles for the last 20 years. They make a big difference, especially with my strings. I use 13 through 58. And
I did not realize 13 to 58.
Yeah.
How long has that been the status quo?
Since I was 14 or 15 years old.
Okay. Wow. And standard tuning.
Standard tuning.
I don't honestly know much about that range on a 6-string in standard tuning. Is there any big difference? I have 9s on here.
Yeah.
So
the biggest difference is, and I found it amusing the last few years because there's so many people talking about does string gauge matter, and there's been a lot of videos.
Oh, I was part of that wave of things.
I'll just put in my 2 cents on.
Please do.
The things that matter the most to me about using them. Tone is one of the big aspects. Now, is it right for everything? No. So, like, if you call me into a session and say I need to play, you know, like, I'm not going to use this guitar. I'm going to use something with lighter strings. If I need to do Paul Jackson Jr. or Prince or, you know, like really thin and funky kind of percussive guitar, I'll probably use something with a little bit lighter strings. But for everything else, I will always prefer the heavier strings because they intonate better and the tone is better to me. That's just a personal thing. The main reason that I use them is because I like what it does to my kind of headspace. When I pick up the guitar, there's no like half-assing it when you pick up a guitar with strings this heavy on it.
Right.
You're in all the time. You have to be ready to go. Because if you take off time playing, it hurts. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So I like that it's like, oh, it's not that easy to play my guitar. You know what I mean? So when I pick up my guitar, it puts me right into like, it's go time mode, you know? I like that. I like the fight.
Does this guitar come, like, if somebody were to buy...
No.
Some kid buys this thing. It's like, I love Josh Smith. He's amazing. I want to get that guitar. The guitar doesn't work.
Ibanez asked. They were like, dude, you want to ship it with 13s in it? And be sitting on the wall in Guitar Center with 13s on it? And I was like, no. I want someone to pick it up and want to buy it. Yeah. And so, no, I think it comes with 10s on it.
It's about your goals and knowing yourself as a player, I guess.
Oh, yeah. And, I mean, one of the other reasons I started doing it, obviously, I love Stevie Ray Vaughan, and he did it.
Yep.
As a kid, I once got invited to sit in with somebody, and I didn't have my guitar, and they had a 63 Strat. I said, just get up and play my guitar. And so I got up, and they handed me the guitar, and it had 13s on it. I was not prepared, and I could barely play the thing, and I was so embarrassed.
Yeah.
That I said, that will never happen to me again. And literally, I made my dad take me to the music store the next day, and I bought whatever the heaviest set of strings they had in the store was, and took them home, put them on my guitar. And I didn't know how to set them. I was 13 or something. My neck bowed like crazy. You know what I mean?
That's great. That is so funny because those sort of formative experiences that are usually failures are the things that you still grab onto when you need that extra motivation.
Dude, you're so right. Like practical application. And I think that's something that the generation coming up now who have all the information available to them and are infinitely better at a quicker pace than I ever was or anybody is, because that's just the way it is generationally. The next generation is going to learn faster, quicker. They got more available information to them. But they're missing out on all of those like tools that I learned, like being on the bandstand at 12, 13 until 3 in the morning with a bunch of adults.
Yeah.
Where, like you just said, I make a mistake where, man, I didn't know that my tubes sucked in my amp or that my guitar wasn't intonated right and sounded bad. It sounded fine in my bedroom, but once I started playing with other musicians, it was like, why do I sound out of tune? You know what I mean? Those types of things, you only learn that on the job. Yeah. And like you said, once you make that mistake once, if you care, you'll never make that mistake ever again.
If you care.
If you care.
If it damages you enough.
Absolutely. When a drummer would tell me as a kid, dude, you know, you're dragging. Listen to my right hand, you know, the hi-hat. Listen to my left hand, 2 and 4. You need to listen to more James Brown, kid.
Yeah.
Well, I did. You know what I mean? Because I didn't want somebody ever say that to me again.
Is that getting a little lost in the...
Yes.
Maybe in certain rooms it's still there as far as just the accountability. Hey, there's a little bit more softness in the world as far as like artists and musicians and the way we collaborate, which is a beautiful thing, and everybody's supportive more now than ever, I think. But there is an edge that is sort of just like you're talking about fighting against 13s or getting in the shed, I can't improvise like I wanted to. That edge is actually the thing that nobody can truly define. It's not a tangible thing, but it's a feeling that maybe isn't as important to people as other things just due to distractions, and you kind of forget about that magical sauce.
Well, sure, you got people, you know, who are unable to listen to constructive criticism.
Right.
Just because of the day and age that we're in now, they take it as an attack, you know what I mean?
Or like if you say something, it's like, well, that's the way you do it, but I do it this way. It's
exactly.
like, no, I'm pretty sure we had it right.
Well, it's not whether it was right or wrong. It was that, well,
or proven that.
I was 14 and have a 40-year-old man talking to me who's been doing this for 30 years. He may know something else that I don't know yet.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's possible. Be open-minded to that. You know what I mean? So even if it hurts your feelings, there's also probably some truth to it. You know what I mean? But now, I mean, some of it depends on what your stated goal. You know, but if your goal is to be a working musician, not just a solo artist, then that's only half the battle.
I've honestly run into that exact dilemma in my own career since I started everything essentially in this box. Right. I'm not forced to play for hours, and I am if I want to make a good video, but it's not like a performance in front of people, which is sort of what I always envisioned music was performing on a stage.
Yeah, for sure.
So I don't want to say that I'm like a different musician than I would have been had I taken a traditional path.
It doesn't matter. My opinion is really because the genie is out of the bottle. Like, those gigs aren't coming back.
Yeah.
That way of learning isn't coming back. If I wanted to ask my friend or just learn the melodic minor scale and how to apply it to something, if I could have just typed that in and been playing it 5 seconds later in a musical way, that's the world we live in now. Like, it's unreal.
Modern Blues Guitar Phrasing.
Yeah.
Which is your new
book, yeah.
New education book. Another hat that you're wearing on top of the session, the production, the touring.
Yeah.
You came out with this book recently?
Yeah, just this week. Really building a true vocabulary. Not just the tools, but I dropped the pick again. But how to apply them and build your unique voice, which is something that's really been important to me over the years as an improviser. Because, when I started, I sounded just like Stevie Ray Vaughan, because that was all I cared about.
Not the worst thing.
No, but that was, I knew every solo note from note, straight from the heart, and that was all I cared about, all I wanted to do, until, 13-year-old me doing that with the hat, saw some 40-year-old guy doing that, and realized, well, maybe I don't want to be doing that once I'm 40. Like, I need to go past this stage.
That's a really interesting thing.
Oh, dude, I remember it vividly. Because, I had been wearing the hat and playing a Stevie Ray Strat, and, we played tons of Stevie Ray songs in my band, and that was what I wanted to do, and I was on a blues festival, and then this band came on after us at a blues festival, and it was all adults, but the guy was basically the same thing. The guitar player was some 40 or 50, maybe 50-year-old dude, hat, Stevie Ray Vaughan Strat. They played a bunch of Stevie songs, and that's all he did was like Stevie style. Yeah. And it was like a eye-opener, a light bulb of like, is that what I look like? Is that what I sound like? Like, is it kind of weird to do that?
Yeah.
And, I was a kid. It's okay. Like, we all do that with our heroes. But I started to be very, very conscious as I went forward from there of trying to take like left turns whenever I could. I'm really trying to listen to like my internal narrative. I think that's something that gets lost a lot with people trying to solo and improvise. They build up so much knowledge and ability and technique and all these amazing things, but it all gets like put in this filing cabinet where you go, give me A23 right here over this chord. You know what I mean? That's what I play. When this chord happens or this groove, I play A17 or B6 or whatever.
This filing cabinet.
Exactly. And I've always tried to like clue in on, throw that all away. Like learn all that, but when a piece of music comes on, like if you start playing the chord, just a vamp, you know?
Yeah.
Immediately, I'm sure you start hearing something. I start hearing something. So if I'm hearing, I may hear, whatever. It's answers, it's a vocal line, it's horns, it's a groove, it's a melody. But I know I'm hearing something immediately. How often do you ignore that and just go,
Usually when you're nervous, I found.
Yes, but some people always do it. You know what I mean? They never key into like, what are they really hearing, and when something's happening, and that's where honest like improvisation comes from. And I think when you play like that, that's when you connect with an audience.
I love hearing that from you. I've heard it a few different ways. Like Victor Wooten said a similar thing where he's like, music theory is like tools, and those tools should be in the toolbox. But the toolbox, I'm not driving along in the passenger seat. Like the toolbox is in the trunk. I hope I don't even need the toolbox.
That's so great. I haven't heard of that.
Yeah,
but that's awesome.
Having all this information, it doesn't serve you unless you can actually, ironically, let go of it when the time comes.
100%.
It's a weird thing.
Almost doing exactly what I just said about learning from your heroes and then realizing you can't just do that.
Yep.
I took 10 of my biggest heroes and showed exactly kind of how I would learn one of their licks, but then focused on, instead of just like playing that lick, what was the reason that lick even stood out to me in the first place?
Sure.
The way it made me feel. And that may be because of what it says harmonically. It could be because of what it says dynamically, the way the guy played it, you know, or it could be the way it's melodic. It could be anything about it that made me go, man, I need to learn that lick. Well, when you learn something that way, then the intent and the underlying meaning of that thing becomes part of your vocabulary. Not just a lick. You're not just pulling out, let me go Stevie Ray number 7 right here.
Yeah.
No, it becomes, oh man, remember when he really laid back behind the beat on that groove and hammered on that flat 5?
Yeah.
Like, do that. Don't just play the lick, but play, you know what I mean? Like, it's the idea behind it that makes it part of your vocabulary, and you find your own way to implement it. So that's what I did in the book, is kind of take licks from my heroes and then kind of show you how it's more about what is the main thing going on in this lick and make your own thing out of it. And here's something I would make out of that. Thanks for having me over,
Seriously,
man.
a real privilege.
Good to get to know you, man.
I appreciate your time too, man. I know
Oh,
you're
anytime, bro. Anytime.
all over.
We're gonna be back here. We're playing the Ryman in like 2 weeks.
Really?
You should come down.
I've never seen any of that crew. I would love to.